Hey, all, welcome to my channel. It's been a while since I've done a live. I never got a chance to talk about the playoffs. The playoffs are here and done. Now it's like the NFC Championship as well as the AFC Championship. So, congrats first off to the Detroit Lions. Long time waiting for that, as well as Detroit Lions and the San Francisco 49ers. And also, congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs as well as the Baltimore Ravens. Now, let's begin. The wild card games were impressive in and of itself. We had a lot of upsets, of course. Specifically Green Bay beating the Cowboys, and then you had the Green Bay beating the Cowboys, and then you had basically Tampa Bay beating, whooping basically, not beating but whooping the Philadelphia Eagles practically. I mean, it seems like the Eagles in the beginning of the year, middle of the year, the Eagles were on top, best record in the NFL, and then all of a sudden they just like started sliding for no reason. The question is whether it's the coach, the players, Jalen Hurts. It's hard to determine that, but that'll be found out and determined as the course of the offseason goes on. Similarly with the Cowboys, I mean they were favorites. I mean McCarthy, look for McCarthy to be fired, of course. See if Belichick. I mean, honestly, if I'm Jerry Jones and you want Belichick, you better make it quick because like Belichick may go to the Falcons. There's no way that first off Harbaugh is going to be with the Falcons. He's definitely going to be with the San Diego Chargers. Now, to the aspect of the uh, Texans beating out the Browns. I mean, sadly for the Browns, I mean, you made the playoffs again. It was maybe could have been your year, but it wasn't. I mean, Flacco wasn't. I mean, they did as much as they possibly could, but injuries kept, pretty much was holding them back. I mean, without those injuries, if they were all healthy, chances are the Browns probably would have given the Texans a run for their money, quite honestly. Now, on to the playoff games itself, divisional playoffs for each. Now, the Chiefs and Bills, let's be honest, that was a game I didn't expect, honestly. That was by far the more interesting game out of all the other games, quite honestly. I think it's more of a case because the fact is like, had he had the field goal basically connected, go into overtime. If they go into overtime, I think the Bills win in overtime at that point. But the real question is, can the Bills beat the Ravens? It's hard to say because like the Ravens, the whooping they gave the Texans made absolute sense. We were going to see that was going to happen, so it was going to happen. The real question is like, the Bills felt unlucky. Were in a division where had they gone the route of being able to play the Texans, it might have been a different story because they definitely would have been Texans for sure, hands down. And then between the Ravens and Chiefs, it would have been a battle out, a slugfest that I think the winner of that game would have been so tired out that by going against going against the Bills, they probably would have lost to the Bills. But in any case, the Bills, had they gone to the overtime, I think they would have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, the Green Bay San Francisco game, it's pretty much a case where Green Bay pretty much gave the victory to San Francisco more than anything else. Now, everyone's going to say, well, Brock Purdy was enough to the point where like he got them to where they needed to be. Honestly, I don't think so. I think it's more of the quarterback in the system. The system itself is actually what helped him win. All Purdy had to do is make sure that he basically kept him in the game and game manage, which he was doing. Quite honestly, I think, let's put it this way. If Purdy was taken out of the 49ers and put into another team, chances are he wouldn't be that great. I mean, we saw already with Cameron basically how he did it. Not Cameron, I forgot his name now. The Raiders, he was Garoppolo. I'm sorry, Garoppolo. I don't know why I keep calling him Cameron, but Garoppolo. Had Garoppolo, stayed with the 49ers, probably wouldn't have been the exact same thing. Similarly with Trey Lance as well too. I think it's the system itself. You could plug and play. I mean, honestly, I think if you put Daniel Jones in there, the same exact situation I think would have happened. If Purdy was brought into the Giants lineup, we calling for his head basically. It's like we gotta get rid of him. We gotta get rid of him. So I think in that situation, that's what happened. That's what we saw. Now with the Lions and Buccaneers, Tampa Bay. I think the Tampa Bay Baker Mayfield shows that he's good enough to keep him in there. To keep him in there within the game, because like put it this way, at halftime, it was a game. Quite honestly, it was a game by halftime. After halftime, Tampa Bay, their defense kind of let them down a little, and of course, I think Detroit's defense stepped up. They knew what to do and how to take care of Baker Mayfield, basically, essentially. And so, because of that, I think that's what happened with the Ravens and Texans. Honestly, I thought the Texans might have made it more closer, but after halftime, we saw that was never going to happen. I'll say this, though. I honestly thought for sure the Pack were going to win that game, quite honestly. I thought they were going to win that game because of the fact that the way San Francisco played, Green Bay was the hotter team at that point. And I think if Green Bay had gone and beaten the 49ers, I think they would be beating the Lions right now. But now the way that the 49ers came out and played, I think the Lions know what they need to do is they need to beat the system, not the quarterback, the system. Force out, let the quarterback force the turnovers, let him make the mistakes. I think they can do that. If I had my choice, I would probably say the Detroit Lions actually win this game. More so because the fact is I think it comes down to this. If they can blitz Purdy and they can basically force him to create mistakes, I think you have it. The only thing is the way that the Lions' defense has to go about, as essentially they've got to control McCaffrey. If they can control and halt the ground game, Purdy's going to be making mistakes. Now, the other question that comes on the opposite end, San Francisco's defense is practically number one. So the real question comes down to this: can the Detroit Lions offensive line hold Bosa and Chase? Can they hold them off? Because that's what it's going to come down to. It's going to be the O-line against those two players. If they can contain them, then look for Goff to basically use Goff going crazy. Not crazy, but like at least getting 200 plus yards. Now on the opposite end with the Chiefs and Ravens, I'm going to say it's probably going to be the Ravens. The reason why I say this is because Lamar Jackson, it's all him. It's pretty much all him at this point. Unless he gets injured, this is the Ravens' year. And so I have a feeling it's going to be the Ravens versus the Detroit Lions. Now, the real question is between Detroit and Ravens, who would win that Super Bowl? I'm going to say it might be the Ravens in this case. Why I say this is because the fact is like Detroit getting into the Super Bowl for the first time ever in franchise history. Well, not in franchise history, but in franchise history. I think it comes down to this with the Lions. I don't think they'd be able to contain Lamar Jackson or their running game. But this is assuming Detroit beats San Francisco, and of course Baltimore beats the Chiefs. Now, the reason why I'm saying that the Ravens beat the Chiefs is because the fact is I think they'll be able to contain Kelsey, and two, I think they'll know how to contain Mahomes a little bit. Because if they can contain Kelsey and Mahomes, I think they've got the game locked down. We saw what they did. We saw what the Ravens did to the Houston Texans, and C.J. Stroud reminds me a little bit of of Holmes, basically. C.J. Stroud kind of reminds me of a little bit of Patrick Mahomes when he was younger, a little bit. So the fact that I think they could contain him as well too, Patrick Mahomes. The real question is, can they contain Kelsey? I think so. If you double up on him, I think you're good at that point. The real question is the wide receiving core, but I think their secondary, the Baltimore secondary, is just as good enough as to contain the secondary as well too. Now on the opposite end, can Kansas City contain Lamar? It's a tough one. but if they're able to, I'd be really impressed. That one looked to be a close game. The Detroit Lions 49ers game, it's going to be a low scoring game, I think. It's going to be a very low scoring game. And I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. I think it's going to come down to the fourth quarter. I think it's going to be a very close game till the end of the third quarter. Fourth quarter is when the first team that scores in the fourth quarter is the one that's going to win. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Again, welcome to my channel for all this stuff. Of course, for those that are looking at my YouTube channel, once the thing becomes live, you're welcome to look at it, comment, leave a comment. I do read all my comments, and I do respond to them when they want to respond. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think it will be the Ravens and Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl? And do you think the Baltimore Ravens beat the Detroit Lions in the Super Bowl at that point? But with that, I'll leave it at that. Again, always unfiltered, unedited, and of course, always unrehearsed.